Welcome to this week's episode of Roadmap. I'm your host, Rach, and today I'm joined by Paul and Maria, who work in our dealer auction and bikes, leisure and commercial squads. So today's episode is all about what it's like to work in a more broad product area. So going wide versus knowing when to go deep as a product manager working in that area. And today we're going to delve into a little bit of advice for all of you at home about how to get the most out of working in a broader product area as someone who's either enabling the success or is driving it as somebody who works in product. So welcome.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Before we kick off, it'd be really good if we could get a bit of an introduction to what it is that you do at Auto Trader, how you've kind of ended up in your roles today. So who wants to start?
Yeah, I can start, yeah. So been around a bit now. My background is, I started at uni, I did maths, and then I worked for Nuclear Electric. I was a software developer for a few years. Then I actually did lecturing in software development. That I didn't really like that much. I was living out of a suitcase. So I gave that a year and then moved on, doing a bit of consultancy in software development, then decided I fancied being a project manager. I moved into ISPs, worked for, I worked for one ISP, but it kind of through acquisitions, you ended up working for numerous and getting involved with the integration to those ISPs as my main projects. And then Auto Trader came along. 14 years I've been here now. Few years, and we were back in Newton New Willows when I started as a project manager, and one of the first roles I did was working with the bike, leisure and commercial team. So just for background, what bike, leisure and commercial is, Auto Trader obviously is very, very well known for cars, but there are a lot of other vehicle types we sell, bikes, trucks, motorhomes, you name it. So it's given a broad focus working across those vehicle types. And as the years went on working on those, I was really interested in what the product leads did. And I always thought, I fancy that. I think that probably suit me better than what I do as a project manager. And I moved into actually a dealer websites team where the product leader there was actually Maria, sat next to me. And as I've been working in that team a couple of years, a vacancy came along for a product lead in bike, leisure and commercial, which was perfect because it was something I already knew, that part of the business. So it was going to be the easiest transition into a product role. So yeah, I've been doing that about probably pushing 10 years now, but 8 to 10 years. I can't remember how far back it is when I first started doing it. A long time in bike, leisure and commercial, and more recently working on our vehicle history checks as well.
Brilliant. What a journey.
Definitely.
A few years.
Didn't know about that lecturing, Paul. That's
Yeah.
news.
Yeah, that shocked me this morning. I was like, you're a lecturer.
Keeping that one quiet, eh? Well, for me, I started in telcos. I started in a customer-facing role. And my first experience of product was what I would class as a very poor product launch. We were trained. I went off on maternity leave, came back 3 months later. Product still hadn't launched. Everybody had forgotten what it was about. And that sort of triggered a common theme probably throughout my career, which is the desire to help get involved and help improve things, fix things, which I think is definitely a common sort of behaviour really in product people. We like to fix things for users and people and those around us. So spent my early career in product in a small business unit. Which was fantastic because I got to experience all the different aspects of product from what was then called in life and now would be like optimization of a mature product to product development. I then moved into a broader technology area, which was still relatively new at the time. I'm going to show my age a little bit because it's broadband, which is now taken for granted. And had an absolute ball there in a new technology team with a more delivery focus in my role. Worked in an ISP, so sort of moved out of that bigger business into a small business and really enjoyed Agile for the first time there. And that gave me, again, a new lens focus from a product perspective. And then ended up working in Auto Trader, basically using that telco experience. So it was a call tracking product, was the first product I looked after. But that has then led to 17 years in and around the business supporting automotive. So, plenty of different roles and experience, commercial, launches, you name it. I've been involved in it and loved every single minute of it.
Brilliant. Excellent experiences there. So today is all about product depth, and from just your introductions, you've covered a whole host of different things in your career as auto trader. But I think just kind of getting down to the definition, what is it? What is product breadth? And what does it mean to both of you in your roles?
So I think when we think about product breadth, it's more when you're looking after an area rather than a specific product. When you're looking after a specific product, you've got that real detailed knowledge of that specific area. And quite often, certainly in my experience, it's been with a very clear focus on one user group. Whereas when you have a broader area, you can often be looking after different user groups. So, for example, my role now in dealer auction, looking after the marketplace that is dealer auction today, we are looking at both the buyers and the sellers, but we've also got internal customers as well because we have an admin system. So we've got 3 user groups. So you constantly, that prioritization that is basic in all product roles, learning how to prioritize and making sure you're making the right calls around that prioritization. As you get that breadth, that can be a little bit more complex because you've got different user needs to actually try and balance as well. I think that would be my sort of summary, I guess, of broad rather than the narrow. And I guess the other piece, Paul, that we talked about is the need in a broad role to know who are the experts to speak to. So you're often dependent on, and this has happened recently because we were talking about vehicle checks, where you now are very focused. We use vehicle checks, so speaking to Paul gives me the insight and knowledge I need to be able to ensure that we are current and giving our customers a great experience when it comes to vehicle checks, versus having that in-depth knowledge. Do you agree?
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, there's a lot of common themes there on bike, leisure and commercial. You are looking across 7 different marketplaces for all the different vehicle types. You're looking at trade tools, you're looking at consumer tools. You're actually looking at the manufacturers as well, working with some of the manufacturers. And then because sometimes you won't get immediate resources as fast as you might do in cars world, you're having to be more flexible to, maybe do some things that maybe not even be fully part of a product role. Yeah. So you're just doing things like financial modelling in Excel for customer journeys because maybe there wasn't enough resource in finance to do that. So you're getting involved with that a lot more in the commercials. And it was a lot of contact switching. You can imagine you might have a day where in the morning you're presenting to Harley Davidson and in the afternoon you're doing trucks SEO. It can be that broad and different. And that's what I really, really liked about it, because when you're in there, you learn a lot of new skills because of that broad area. And you get involved with a lot of other products as well, because you're having to liaise very closely with all the other product leads around the business to promote, the bike, leisure and commercial vehicle types, make sure they're always front of mind for them as well, because it's not their natural focus. It'll always be a car's focus, and if you keep close to them, you can make sure that the timing might be right to look at something for bikes at the same time as cars, because there's a lot of close synergies with that, and and then use your knowledge within bikes to optimize that journey for bikes or whatever it might be. It's very, very good, and very good for anyone to spend time in the bike, leisure, commercial team, because you will definitely broaden your skill set.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting as well, because we were chatting about this earlier, and I think that there's always the perception on Auto Trader that it's just cars, like we sell cars, and bikes, leisure, commercial is a really important aspect of what we do. Dealer auctions, likewise, we have so many different kind of entities and areas that exist around the business, and when you think about it, it's huge. So I feel like no 2 days are ever the same. There's always something. I say that in every episode, actually. There's always something that we're doing.
It's really true, though, and that ability to switch hats and focus and switch, that is really important, and being able to just keep a focus. on the next thing,
Yeah.
you know, and I think over time as well, learning those skills that, you know, do you need that 15-minute just in between those calls so you can reset your thinking and get yourself into the right headspace, you know, rather than just running straight through the day? Or can you actually just run through straight through the day and then you sort of wrap up towards the end? I think that's like your personal preferences on how you run that.
Yeah, definitely. So when we were chatting about this episode the other week, what we actually formed when we were kind of planning the content, it felt like there was some very clear lessons that you've both learned from your experiences, that I think that if we were to structure it, these would be the things that if you're going to give advice to other people that might be working in broad product areas, these would be the things that have definitely benefited yourselves throughout your careers. So I thought it would be good. We could go through these today, do a bit of a knowledge share. So one of the first things that we did chat about was the whole aspect of relationship building.
Yeah.
Now, this was a huge theme that came out when we were chatting the other day about, you know, how you kind of, like, you're almost kind of balancing. You are, and it's what you said, Maria, the other day, you are at the hub, the center of this hub and this activity that's going on around you, and relationship building felt like such a huge theme that came out of that. So I just wondered if we could kind of delve into that first.
Yep, certainly. I mean, for me, I couldn't do my job without other people. Like you reference product being the hub. We don't speak to customers all of the time. We'd love to, but we don't have the time to be able to do that. But our customer-facing teams do. So having the right relationships with customer-facing teams, even the corridor conversation where you're passing somebody and they can stop you and say, oh, a customer mentioned this to me.
Yeah.
And it can trigger something which we weren't aware of.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that would be one example. Another example might be, you know, if there's something legal that's going to change and you bump into somebody from that team that's got the insight and they're giving you the heads up that actually you need a conversation to make sure that you're going to remain legally compliant.
Yeah.
You know, when GDPR became a thing, that was really cross different areas of the business. Everybody was involved, working together to make sure that we remain compliant and ensure that the customer experience remains where it needs to be.
Yeah, on the same thing. So we had like our team was all based together, so it was quite easy in that respect, the relationships within the bike, leisure and commercial team, because you had the sales team might be sat on the next bank of desks to you, and you could actually hear their conversations then, and you could pick up on things where they might be finding something challenging and go and help them.
Yeah.
So that was really useful. And you know, within those areas, you had like the marketing people as well, so you could work very closely with them to build your marketing plans and, you know, talking about the product strategy with them and how it fitted into their marketing streams and things. But then you've got like the wider stakeholders within the whole of Auto Trader, all the other. So you're relying a lot of it now on product leads and tech leads within other teams across Auto Trader to deliver what you need. So you need to keep very close to them, make sure they totally understand the importance of what it is that you need to do and how it fits with other things. Because when you're kind of building a big plan for something you might need to roll out, you know, you might have 7 or 8 teams you're dependent on. And if any one of those falls down because that resource isn't there, then that's your plan down and it's just blocked. And sometimes it is all dependent on teams, but that's why I say it was really useful learning more skills and mucking in where you can with things outside product, because it avoids blockers. It removes the number of dependencies with other parts of the business if you can do some things yourself that aren't naturally the product role.
Yeah.
And I think that's really true. That engagement of people is critical. You can't do your job unless you get everybody involved and they understand what you're working towards, that vision. And I think that was one of my learning points when I sort of moved into that broader role. I was lucky enough, and throughout my career I've been really lucky to work in different areas, but I'd had a singular area of focus with a squad. So working really close with, the devs and being in that communication on a day-to-day basis, to actually managing 5 squads across retailer.
Yeah.
And the learning in that step change was quite important actually for me and where I am now, because it was this change between being able to communicate a vision which everybody bought into, and like is the really exciting bit. That's the bit where you can get
Right,
everybody
we're doing
behind
this.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When you're in a small team, that's really easy, and then you can communicate on a day-to-day basis how that breaks down. But when you've got a broader team, actually, the strategy and the goal setting becomes really important. And that was definitely part of my learning when I first, got the responsibility of the 5-squad structure, was how important it was. They got the vision, but then how did they all work together to contribute to that overall vision? So what were their strategic goals and how were they going to prioritise against it? And it also ensures then that the teams can have the autonomy to actually work on that prioritisation because they understand that broader overall goal and how they're contributing.
Yeah, and I think mentioned a good point the other day, investing early doors. So kind of not coming in part way through or having half a kind of plan.
Yeah.
It's right from the get-go involving these teams, because we've all been in these situations where you are part of a bigger project as an individual contributor, or you've got a role to play in a business. And if someone comes to you and they're just like, right, we're doing this now, we've kind of got half a plan, and you think to yourself, well, I've had all these ideas and maybe I could have had some thoughts on it. And it is that feeling sometimes that we've all been in where we're like, oh, I would have been nice to be involved in this at the start. I think it's having empathy for others and just making sure that everyone goes on the journey together.
Yeah.
And if people, and I think actually it's a really good positive of working here at Auto Trader, you can be open and have the feedback, and it is a two-way kind of conversation a lot of the time. So I think a big thing is having empathy as a product lead, which it sounds like you've both kind of really practiced in your roles.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Rachel, that doing that communication early allows you the questions to come out at that early stage, and then you can get people on board. Yeah. But it also then ensures that, one, you can move at speed because people understand what they're doing and how they focus. And also, the challenges are often a lot better. So because, those are good challenges, people have genuine concern around why they're doing things and the approach you're taking. And having the ability to have that discussion in a constructive way is absolutely the best outcomes come from that. Yeah. And the other thing I would add is, look, ideas come from everywhere.
Yes.
Like if any product person is sitting out there thinking, I'm responsible for generating the ideas, that's not the case. I think the majority of us know that, right? The best ideas come from other areas. It's just, so you've got to be listening. Yeah. You've got to be not overly, I call it being precious about the things that you think are important sometimes. You have to let that go sometimes. Listen. And for me, sometimes it takes a bit of time. Like I don't do it. It's not always instinctive. Sometimes I have to take things away, think about it, and then go back to the person and explore a bit more. And I think that's the key to then unlocking the best results for the customer and the business.
Yeah. I think that's right. So sometimes as well, I've noticed with these relationships with other people, since we come back from lockdown, which is quite a while now, and we're all back together in the office, that it just naturally being here and walking around the corridors and stuff, people will see you, as in me, and remember some bike, leisure and commercial implication that they needed to chat to me about that probably wasn't top of their list. And then it's just naturally seeing people, and I'll be the same. I'll spot people and just go over. It doesn't have to be meetings. Go over for a general chat, and then some gem comes out as a result of a little chat on the side of a desk, and then that can go a long way. And sometimes when you're working close with these people as well, when you get a good grip of what they're doing, like valuations, for example, on cars. Yeah. They haven't got time to do something like valuations on vans at the minute, but you can go off and do your own discovery, which kind of did with like Excel prototypes and things with customers, and feed that back into that team, the positive feedback it got, and that can get that team really enthused about it, and then it ends up being a product in its own right, the van valuations longer term. So I
definitely think the power of having connected, we call it connected working, so anyone who you might have this at your own company who might be listening, but we have 2 fixed days in the office, and then we have a flex day, so you can kind of use that whenever you want during the week. And I know it gets a lot of I guess there's a lot of divided opinion about after lockdown coming back to the office. I think it works for us because we, right from the get-go of joining the company, you are encouraged to collaborate, get around a wall, get your heads together. And I find it so much harder because we do a lot of workshops here as well. And if you've ever tried to do a 2-hour workshop, like on a Teams call, it does not work. Miro, I love you, but it's just not, it's not really built for the purpose of what we kind of do here at Autotrader. And you're totally right. Like, you can say something over Slack. So someone might message you on Slack and you're like, okay, I'm reading it in this way, or, oh, that's quite a short sentence. And it's probably because they're busy, they've got other things to do. And I think actually just going into an office and just asking someone, or just spending 5 minutes with them, you're in the coffee queue, it just makes a world of difference. Because we're humans and we're very complex creatures, individuals, and you never know what the context of situations until you're physically together and you can just bring that empathy and that emotion out with each other. I think it makes a world of difference.
Much better. Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. So the third kind of lesson that we have chatted about as well, and I think this is a huge one, it's all about having the right strategic plan. Now, the other day we were chatting about like migrations, because obviously working in a broader area, at some point there is going to be migration work, larger scale projects. And you both mentioned this need and understanding of having a strategic plan in place. So yeah, I wondered if we could kind of delve into that as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I think migrations is not something people always naturally think of as a product role.
Yeah.
But again, coming back to that part that we talked about before, because we we look to commercial, we look to customer, we look to all the different aspects of the business, we naturally can help support those. The core work is going to be done by the engineers, let's be clear.
Yeah.
But, those requirements building, understanding which customer sets might be impacted at what point and being able to manage for that is how product can help during those phases. Yeah. And I think you've had some really good experience, haven't you, Paul, with that?
Yeah, on Trucks, Plant and Farm, some of the vehicle types we sell, we used to have its own dedicated platform and its own dedicated development team. And with it being on its own platform, we had free rein to do what we like with it, and full resource always there to modify it. But over time, some of the other vehicle types like vans and bikes, motorhomes, etc., they'd moved onto the core Autotrader platform, and they'd really benefited from that. Once you're on the core Autotrader platform, then there's like 300 people in product and tech now, isn't there?
Yeah.
All the good stuff that's happening, or most of the good stuff that's happening, then you're benefiting from all that work that's been done from cars. And Trucks, Plant and Farm, it was, the products had got kind of too many of them, too distant from the cars products, and we wanted to have the strategy to kind of follow Autotrader and go away from having our own dev team. So we did a lot of competitor analysis as well, because what you commercially are trying to sell to retailers on Trucks, Plant and Farm, from a proposition is going to be quite different than cars. Some of the vehicle types they have, like tractors, excavators, it's not the same, is it? And then you'll get other ones that are selling things like mowers that are worth nothing like a tractor, or an excavator like the ROI on it. So you've got to be really looking into a lot of detail in that and building your strategy around how you're going to sell it. And the customer journeys are always going to be complicated as well, moving from an old product set to a new one. So we had to kind of do that whole competitor analysis piece, pricing, other propositions, what our plan was for all this customer base, how it would impact them, how it would impact our revenues, etc., and present that to a very high level, senior level at Autotrader to make sure we got buy-in for doing this and moving Trucks, Plant and Farm onto the core platform as well. So they bought into it, which was great. But then it becomes a very complex migration, because you've got to, again, like all the other things, you've got to consider the trade tools, the consumer tools, both the websites, the native apps. You've got like all the analytics in Looker and all that kind of stuff, and probably a lot of other stuff that I'm not thinking about right now, but there was lots of streams to it. And you've got to then get buy-in from all those different product areas where the product team might manage, like Portal, for example, one of the trade tools, and make sure they all buy into your plan, or else that plan is never going to get executed. Yeah. You need to get all that resource aligned, all the new products built within like our system called Single View that does all the products. Yeah. And then you've just got to kind of execute that plan in as good a way as you can. training all the sales team, keeping an eye on all the different streams that are going on. And it went live the day before my 50th birthday, actually, which was quite nice. And it was successful. It would have ruined my 50th birthday had it not been successful. But it was a nice, smooth migration in the end. But it's one of quite a few done over time.
Yeah. And I think you said when we were chatting ahead of the call, the recording, was that in doing that strategic element of it now, you get that knock-on effect of benefit because people are considering you because you did that legwork early doors.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I mean, now it's so different now because what was some of the developers that used to work in bike leisure and commercial, and now they've moved out into the core auto trader area as well. So you've got advocates within the core. It's not just the product leads and some of the other key people like the commercial people within bike leisure and commercial. You've got other people who have had that experience and know what it's like to be in that team and how passionate you are about that team to make it successful. And they're all out there thinking of these vehicle types. And they, as I say, the amount of great improvements we've had on those vehicle types since we've migrated onto the core platform, it's been very well worth doing. And it, not only from an internal perspective and the products we've rolled out to consumers and customers, but you can see it from the stock volumes on the site for those vehicle types as well. It's just grown and grown as it's got more and more popular.
I think that's also interesting because if you think about what you said there, Paul, the idea didn't come from the leadership team at Auto Trader. The idea came from the team, and you took that to the leadership team to get that buy-in. And I think that's, again, really key. And it comes back to that point before. The ideas can come from anywhere. Yeah. It's just how you grab them and make sure you listen and then and look at them appropriately.
Yeah.
How did you, so you said the idea came from the team. How did you present that back to the business to make it a priority? How did you bring them on that journey?
Well, we could use case studies from other vehicle types, how they've been successful, because we'd already done it with like bikes and motorhomes and caravans. So some of the stuff that you're looking at is, because you're on the core auto trader domain, the traffic levels have gone up because of the higher quality of SEO and stuff like that. There are lots of key statistics you can pull out from all our analytics. You can say, this has been great growth in all these different areas since we did this. This is how much cleaner the product set is since we did this. Therefore, that team over there called Single View have less work and complexity with them because our product sets are much more now aligned to cars and just many different benefits across the board and proposed designs of how much better it will look and things compared to the old platform. Much more on brand with Auto Trader because you're not having to keep up with brand changes all the time. It's all naturally just fits in, and it's when you kind of see it as a whole big picture, it wasn't it felt like a bit of a no-brainer. It was just finding the right time to prioritize it along with all the other things that were going on with the business.
So the next thing that I kind of want to move on to is, so still in the migration world, there's the dealer auction side of things. So this is your kind of playing field, Maria. Yeah. And one of the things that we did chat about the other day was this whole making that conscious decision.
Yes.
So it leads on a little bit to the next lesson, and it's all about how you navigate the risks and the challenges of something that is large scale. Because with that, there's so many things that, you could dwell on it forever and ever, and it could just go on and on and on. But you, as a product lead, you do have limited time, limited resource. How do you mitigate those risks and those challenges? And I just wondered if you could give a bit of context as well to the journey that you've been on with the dealer auction experience.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the first thing I'm going to say is there is nothing worse than sitting on the fence. If you are sitting on the fence, go get some insight from somebody else. You need to get off the fence one way or the other, make a decision. Yeah. I think when it comes to the dealer auction context was when the joint venture first came into being. Our very first task was to re-platform the entire marketplace. And the then tech director and I spent many hours thinking about how we would do that. Could we do it phased to ensure that we could protect the customer experience? But ultimately, we needed the buyers and sellers on the same platform at the same time in order to ensure the business could provide the service that it should be providing to the customer. So there was no easy solution. It had to be done. It had to be, in the words that we often talk about, like, is it a one-way door or is it a revolving door? Like when you think about that decision making, because actually if it's a revolving door, that means you can come back easily from it. So the risk is less. And therefore, the debate and the conscious decision making, that's it doesn't have quite as much impact if you get it wrong, because you have that ability to come back. When we migrated the platform, there was no coming back.
Yeah.
Once we were off the old platform and on the new one, that was it.
Yeah.
And so there were a number of conversations, at the leadership level, involving people within the business about how we approach that, and some of the key decisions. We spent a lot of time from a product perspective. The product team spent a lot of time understanding the features that we needed to build out to support, building out the admin system as well. These were some new things to the team that we had at the time from product and tech. So there was a lot of learning to be taken, and we took time to do that. And then, core to that whole transition was the movement of customers. So the setup of customers, and we worked to try and mitigate the risk around that. We knew that was going to be risky because it was a one-way door. So we worked to get customers set up on both platforms so they could, experience what the new platform was going to be like before we switched the old one off.
Yeah.
But obviously the stock levels weren't there. This is a remarketing platform. It's important for customers to be able to buy stock on it, right? So, we had some gaps there. So we'd done everything we could to mitigate. And day one came, and the switchover came, and we did really, really well. But there were definitely some pain points.
Yeah.
But I genuinely think when I look back, whilst it was painful, it was more around customers not getting onto the platform rather than the platform itself to begin with. We supported the customer-facing teams. Like, I was down there the first day. We were trying to make sure that we had people available to help customers get on as quickly as possible. Yeah. And then as we found bugs and we found issues, because nothing's ever going to be perfect, right, in that scenario, as we came across them, what we had done was we'd made sure that the communication between the devs and the engineers and the customer-facing teams was there. Yeah. And that what was important was that the customer-facing teams, who were bearing the brunt of the customer's frustration, were able to understand exactly where we were with the things we were fixing and when they could expect to see it, so they could communicate that, so that they felt to a great degree supported, even though we weren't taking the phone calls and having to, help support those customers through that.
Yeah, I definitely think communication is key. No one ever gets mad at over communication. So I definitely think that is definitely a key part of it. And it feels like you were hitting the ground running as well. It almost feels a bit like an MVP,
It had to be, it was, but it had to be that and a bit more, really, because this was it was a
functioning
product, a functioning marketplace. And, you bring the joint venture itself, when we first came together, was 3 individual businesses coming together. So bringing those teams together and getting an understanding of what we were as a business, and then our strategy, what was it we wanted to support and how were we going to go about doing that, was really key and fundamental. We've talked about it before. So I think at every stage, no matter whether it's a singular product or like a marketplace like this was with multiple users, that is it's key to making sure you do it right. And you take the learning as well. Retrospectives are equally important with leadership as it is on the ground when you're actually doing the doing, because you can always learn. And that has been, I think, I won't speak personally for a moment, but that has been one of the privileges of my career, is that ability to move different products, different areas, and gain learning, and then share that learning, hence the reason we're here today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So the kind of, I guess, I feel like we've gone through stages of coping with huge, broad products. I think the last bit, and I feel like this is a really important bit. I mean, these have all been really important, but I think that we've talked a lot about processes and ways of doing things and how, you can work with others. But I think that a really important thing that we did chat about is all about actually yourself as a person. So recognizing the strengths and the blind spots in yourself. Because you've mentioned, like everything's learning. If you're not learning at a company or you feel like you've hit your kind of limit, then like that definitely is not a thing here at Auto Trader. Like there's new things every day. And there's, like you said, there's new projects you move on to and you're just like, okay, this is what I've learned from last time. If I could do all this again, there's definitely things that you can bring forward. But I think that the last learning point is yourself, and there was lots of great comments that we got out of and discussions that we got the other day, so I wonder if we could touch on that as well.
So I think conscious decisions is one for me that we talked about. Make that, when you're getting off the fence, make it a conscious decision. Don't just let it happen to you. At least you can take the learning then. You don't get that learning if you've not made that conscious decision. And I think the other piece that certainly for me is really useful is the question, are you going to do something about it?
Yes.
We all hit things in our career where it might not be the way we thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
You have a choice. And the choice is still with you as the person to decide how you want to manage that. And you can choose to let it go. And that's okay. If that, again, conscious decision of actually, I'm not going to do anything about this. But if I am going to do something about it, what am I going to do? Yeah. Because there is no point sitting there 6 months down the line going, this was done unto me. It wasn't. You chose how you responded to that situation. So for me, that was one of the key changes in my career in terms of owning what happened to me. Because I do think that sometimes you can feel like changes are happening around you that you can't control, but you can still control how you respond to that. And there is no point complaining about, my manager did this. If you have a problem, then either do something about it and go have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is I have never met anybody in my career that wasn't trying to achieve something positive.
Yeah.
So if you think about what they're trying to achieve, that often helps.
Yeah.
Because, and I guess, Paul, whether you'd add to that.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at my strengths and weaknesses, I know it can be both, because I get very, very into the detail of something. I think people who know me know I'm like that, and so and I like to get hands on with things as well. Yeah. Like all the data and insight and that kind of stuff. I'll just crack on and start getting stuck into it myself. Yeah. Sometimes you probably be better off using someone else who's more expert at that. Sometimes you get if you get too much into the detail, then you're kind of losing sight of the bigger picture, and you have to keep reminding yourself, the bigger picture. I need to come back to that.
Yeah.
And but it's that's a good thing, and the bad thing, and other things for me as well. Sometimes I can lack confidence a bit, and you have to push yourself. You can do this. Like doing this now. It's you're just going to make sure you're just very positive in your own mindset, and don't get carried away, and really continuously push yourself. It's like when we had done like the bike, leisure and commercial migration and everything was on the core Auto Trader platform. I remember at the start there I was thinking to myself that, okay, now this is probably going to get a bit easier again, too easy. And I need more of a challenge than this now. So you have to, just say that this is going to be, I know whatever challenge, it'll be a big challenge next, but I really need to push myself to do that. So I went to my manager and blatantly said, this is going to be too easy. It's going to be boring. I need a new challenge.
Yeah.
And then next thing is obviously I had a chat within product and tech leadership, and 2 weeks later at most, someone was chatting to me saying, do you want to be product lead on our vehicle check rollout? We're building our own internal vehicle history checks, and we think you'd be the right person to work on that from a product perspective. And that was a new brilliant challenge where you got more and more involved with the main business again, and more chance to kind of push yourself to get more visible within the core business for doing things like that. And
I think we've both been extremely lucky, right? You work in a business where that behaviour is common.
Yeah.
Then you can't ask for more really in your career, can you? To be able to say to your boss,
Yeah.
that's going to be a bit tiresome because it's not going to stretch me.
Yeah.
And to have that opportunity to do something different. And I think, you know, you mentioned confidence, Paul. I like confidence. I've not overly been confident. People see me as confident sometimes because when you express yourself, you do it in a way where it's important as a lead that you are able to give that persona of being confident. Doesn't mean that's how you feel on the inside all of the time.
Yeah.
So having people around you that support you and know you, actually take the time. So I think that's the other thing. Be in the business, find that business, and when you find that business, you know, enjoy it, because not all businesses are the same. And you know, we've both been fortunate to benefit from that. I distinctly remember that I had one particular boss who did look after me, mentored me, really encouraged me actually in my career, and I'll be forever grateful. But knew me that well on one occasion. We'd had a difficult conversation. Something hadn't gone right, and I had to stand and be responsible for that. That was my job. But as I put my hand on the door to leave that meeting room, that person actually said to me, "And Maria, before you leave, just know this conversation is now done. I'm not going to think about it anymore," because he knew, like, because of my lack of confidence, sometimes I would dwell on things and take it away. And that is just gold. To have somebody that's looking out for you like that in a business is just so helpful to your career, to your confidence. And it enables you to get to those places where it's like, well, what am I going to do about that? Then and do it with confidence.
I think everyone's very honest and open in this business, knowing that no one will judge them in any way. I've never heard so many people use the phrase imposter syndrome, like they felt that sometimes, because like you hear so many people say, "Oh, I felt imposter syndrome in this scenario," and then you're thinking, "Oh, it's not just me then." You know, loads of people feel like that, and that makes you feel much more comfortable when you're in the kind of imposter syndrome type scenario, knowing it's not just you, and you can speak to people about it, and you won't be judged or anything. And everyone's great like that. It's a very, very good supportive place to be.
Yeah, and the ability to fail, right?
Yeah.
And failing
Let yourself be vulnerable.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and having the, again, safe environment to do that. That is important, and that does come back to the culture of the business.
I think it is. I think as a business, you are allowed to have that psychological safety. So whatever you say, because like you said, everyone's got good intentions here. Everyone wants to achieve the goals. Everyone's got the same kind of ambition in mind. And it's just how we do it and how we get there. But I think having a safe space and being vulnerable and allowing yourself to be open, like, that's never going to be a bad thing. You're never going to regret it. It will feel painful. And you might see some realities about yourself as well. I've definitely had that throughout my career. But I think that actually you just come out of it a stronger person than maybe someone who's not letting themselves learn or see that within them.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely agree, Rachel. And to your point earlier, it enables you to understand your blind spots.
Yeah.
Right, because we all have them. You know, I can be good at some things. I am definitely not good at everything. I am definitely not. And what's important then is that I recognise that, and then I make sure that I have people with me that fill those gaps.
Yeah.
But I don't expect them to be able to do everything that I can do, because that's what a team is about, and that's how working together and collaborating and all that great stuff we talk about, but that is how that comes together and makes a really successful business.
I think it's a really good point as well, because I think there's, like, certainly working in product, I think you feel, and we mentioned it earlier, you feel like the responsibility is on you a lot of the time, and you've got this burden, and you feel like you've got this weight on your shoulders. And actually, like, a big part of being in this job is you're bringing out the strengths in others, and, you know, you're at the centre of people that you're collaborating with, and it's just knowing the right people to work with that you can get the best results out of. Because if you just try and do everything, like, it's not healthy. It's not good. We can't be, I think even in product, like, you've definitely, like, everyone's got their own. I like to think, like, in the product team, everyone's got their own skill and strength, and you just play to it, and you just, you bring that out in each other. And that's okay to do. We're human beings.
Exactly. We are all human beings, and we all have our own strengths and weaknesses. And that's what makes us unique.
If we're all the same, like, the business would just fail.
It would be a very boring place to be, wouldn't it, if we were all the same?
I would never learn anything, and we'd never get anything done. If I worked with people like myself, nothing would get done.
Never stretch each other, never think about things differently. Like, I can't
Yeah.
imagine a world like that.
Yeah.
That would be, not a place that I would be.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I kind of accept and laugh at my weaknesses sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the other day, I had some design thinking in my head, and I'm terrible at design, bottom at art in school and all that kind of stuff. But I had something in my head as to how I thought something should be presented. And I drafted it, like just hacking the HTML and something and playing around. I showed it to someone else, and I said, obviously, this looks appalling because I've done it, but when you've done it, I think it looked great, because it was a designer I was working with. And the designer now has now done their version of this prototype. It was not just in my head, it was in one other person's head from tech, that how we thought we should present something. And it looked great when he's done it now. He's kind of worked on it.
Yeah.
And, that's come through from some of our thinking that's a weak area, but the business thought behind it and the consumer benefit behind it being passed on to someone who is really good at presenting things like that and made a great job of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a improv. Have you ever done like improv workshops?
I've done some role plays over the years, and that's never my comfort place either.
So there's a huge thing in improv where it's like you're not allowed to say but, you're not allowed to say anything kind of negative. What you do is you continue the idea. So someone will start with something like a sentence, and I've actually done it at previous companies, and I actually did a workshop with as we did it as a product team as well, and we're going into an improv workshop for team building. What is this? And it ended up being like the most positive, like interactive, absolutely blew my mind, because I'd never done improv before, and it was all about, you've got the idea, someone has it, and you're only allowed to say yes and you go around a group and you end up coming up with, because everyone's got a different perspective or a way of continuing it.
Yeah.
Everyone, like, you end up with these really great ideas. And I use that in ideation as well, because like, look, I do not have great ideas sometimes. I might have a spark of something, but actually if I can just lead with that and someone can yes and, like, you end up with brilliant results.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting.
It sounds. Yeah.
We should do some improv.
Well, I'm just thinking for dealer auction, if the
Do an
team ever
improv
see it there,
workshop.
you'll know where it came from, Rachel.
That'll be our next episode that we line up. We're just going to do some improv on a topic and just see where it takes us. Brilliant. We are almost at time. Just before we close, have you got any kind of final thoughts? Anything that we might have missed in our conversation? Any sort of closing comments? If you were really going to share like something with somebody listening, how would you kind of close this off?
I would probably just say, don't be afraid to reach out and do other things that's outside your natural role, because you'll learn a lot and you'll benefit from over time, and it'll take you to new places you never thought you might go.
Brilliant.
And I would say, make that conscious decision and don't waste time worrying about things.
Yeah.
Because you will look back and you will think how much more you could have achieved in that time. And that's definitely been a personal experience for me.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Excellent. Brilliant closing comments. Well, thank you for joining us today. This has been a great topic. Brilliant.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Rachel.
Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Give us a listen.